number 2 today. Woohoo! I have a question from somebody named Derek, who I actually happen to go to college with. Hey, Derek, what's up? Anyway, we were in choir together. My gosh, I remember doing like improv sessions and stuff. We sang madrigals. Anyway, he was ridiculously talented and to this day still one of the funniest human beings I know. But anyway, he asks a very serious question. He says, could you talk for a few minutes about the basic tools of the musician, the ability to read, write music, some keyboarding skills, aural skills, a working knowledge of music theory, some knowledge of orchestration, and why they are useful not only to the classical musician, but also to any musician? Oh, good question. All right, Derek, have you been practicing your drop the needle tests? We had a wicked professor, Dr. Benson Headley, and he did these evil drop the needle tests for us in aural skills. It was amazing. This is a great question because, as I've said on here one other time, my big pet peeve is when somebody will say the musicians and the singers as if we are a separate entity. Now, sometimes singers, we bring that on ourselves because we are not as prepared as we should be, and we maybe can't sight read as well as, a violinist or something like that. So I charge you, actually, to never, ever, ever give anybody the excuse to call you a weak musician. The whole thing for me is the better musician you are, the better prepared you are, the more power you have. The more choices you have, the stronger the sense of ownership for a piece that you can have. And this for me is freedom. When I walk into a first rehearsal, if I'm unprepared, which I have been, it's happened to me, my gosh, Rosencavalier, it can happen. And the thing is, those days that I'm less prepared, I'm so much more nervous. I'm so much more panicked. The more prepared I am, the much more confident I can be, and I feel much more sense of liberation and freedom. So I do myself a disservice when I come less prepared than I want to be. I was very fortunate that I grew up playing the piano. I had 2 sisters, older sisters, and a very musical family, and I had 2 older sisters that, played brilliantly, and they studied, and they're wonderful, wonderful musicians. And I sort of sat there at the keyboard like this, going, dun, dun, dun. So I grew up with it. I didn't necessarily have the divine intention of doing this from the beginning. It just sort of came to me. But I'll tell you, number one, I have saved so much money on coachings because I can sit down at the keyboard and figure out my own part. It's my favorite moment. I open up the score and I highlight it, and then I sit and I just try and, kind of poorly, but I play through the score. It's great. What that does is it gives me a sense of dialogue with the composer, which is really cool. It's one of my favorite parts of the preparation process. But it also teaches me about the orchestra. These composers put so much time and thought into the characterization through the orchestra, especially, these Mozart accompanied recitatives. My gosh, it's everything that you need to know is in the orchestra. So the more I can go in depth on my own, it's great. The other thing is, with all due respect to coaches out there, the way my mind works is if I have a coach telling me how to do something, I'm always approaching it from an external place, and it's not an internal place. So the way I use a coach is I work languages, and I do the piano, and I figure everything out. And then I take not a finished product, but a really well-prepared product to the coach. And then we can bounce ideas off of each other. Then he can say, oh, have you thought about trying that? Or did you think about this? And so my imagination can really take fire. But it's a really internal process as opposed to external. So it's a selfish thing. You save money on coachings, but it also gives you more power in the decision-making process, and you get to explore it in a different way. Great advice. Christopher Larkin was conducting the Discovery cast, so the second cast in Houston for Marriage of Figaro. He also did Little Women that season, way back in, 1973, in the studio. And I remember one day, I'll never forget this, he said, I can't remember how this came up, but I remember the quote, and he said, as a singer, you should walk into that rehearsal knowing the score better than the conductor. Sometimes that's not hard to do. But it was great advice because it sort of made me sit up and go, I like that, because again, there's a kind of power in that, not in a bad way, but in a good way, in the sense that, if they ask you something, chances are you have a reason for why you've done it. That never means that you should be rigid. You should know, I've studied this and this is the way I do it. No. We always have to stay flexible and open to growing and trying new things. But it really, it gives you more of a sense of profundity in your performance. It can take your nerves away. It gives you more freedom. And it's ultimately, I think, most of us that are in this business have a real sort of hunger for the intellectual side of music as well. And I think it's, we continue to grow and learn if we give ourselves that. The sense of aural skills and things like that, we have to sing in tune. What can I say? And it's good if you know that you're singing out of tune, because, at least for the next phrase, you might be able to catch it. But all those skills make us better artists. It gives us more of an arsenal in our repertoire to choose from. And, for the day that we probably end up teaching, it'll make us better teachers. But it's our profession. And I've always thought, I would never be an architect without knowing how to draw a blueprint. So it is the tools of our trade. And it's a constant learning process, and it's never over. So don't underestimate it. Now, I can't really talk about the non-classical side of things, Derek, but I'll tell you, any musician that has more of a foundation and a deeper rooting in the fundamentals about what we do and different kinds of music, the richer our palette of colors will be. So that's it. Gosh, we'll see if I have another one in me today. I don't know, but in the meantime, ciao.